Hey everyone, so before we jump into today's video, I'm excited to announce that my brand new watercolor booklet, A Beginner's Guide to Watercolor, is finally up on my Etsy shop. I worked super hard on this thing and it covers everything you need to know as a beginner and some things that you may already know as an intermediate but need a couple refreshers. So head on over to my Etsy shop right now and go on and check it out. So let's jump right into the video. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you how to paint a barn in the snow, so let's do it. Okay, so to start, I'm just going to go through my materials. I have my Arches watercolor paper taped down with painter's tape. I have my Winsor Cotman watercolors. I have my Princeton snap brush in a size 6, and I also have a size 12. And I have my paper towel, my water, I have a pencil and a kneaded eraser, and we are ready to go. Okay, so we are going to be doing a barn in the snow. So first we're going to sketch it out. Yours can look however you want. I'm just going to do a simple barn in the distance, and yeah. So I'm going to start by sketching out a small rectangle. Nope, I lied. I'm gonna do a square. This kind of. Nope, I lied again. So I'm gonna start by sketching a rectangle for the side of this barn. Like so. And then I'm gonna bring it up here to do the roof of the barn. Like that, and this will be the front entrance. So I might even like that. Okay. And then I'm just going to create one little side of the roof here, and then the top right here. And it's going to come down parallel to this line like that. Okay. Yeah. And now, sorry, I'm going to draw the doors. So I'm just going to have a big door like that. Maybe some little windows here. 1, 2, 3, like that. And then I'm gonna have those like white lines on top. So you will also need, sorry, I forgot to mention, some white ink. I use Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, but you can use white watercolor, white gouache. You can even use a white gel pen if you need to, on top after. Okay, so we have our barn house thing. Okay, and now we're just going to draw the landscape. So I'm just going to draw where I think the snow is going to end, because we're going to draw some stuff in the background and have it come up a little bit above the bottom of this barn, so it looks like it's on the background, in the background. Okay, and then I am going to leave this. We're going to paint trees here, but I don't need to sketch those out. And then I'm going to do, I think, a wooden fence. So I'm just going to create some rickety old wooden posts here. And it's going to be coming down this way. Like that. That. And these do not have to be straight. I mean, unless you want them to be like a new fancy fence. But I'm going to do like a rickety old barn fence thing. So technical with my terms. You are welcome. All right. Okay. There. We're going to do some trees in the background. If you'd like to do some tree branches and stuff, like maybe a bigger tree, I'm going to keep it simple, I think. Am I? Am I not? Yes, I'm gonna keep it simple. Okay, so I'm gonna do the stuff that requires color first, and then we're gonna do the snow and the trees and everything after. So I'm gonna start off with this barn, and I'm just gonna erase this just a bit, just so I can see a bit of the outline, but not the whole thing. And I'm gonna do a traditional red barn. So I'm going to dip my paintbrush in my red, and I'm gonna go over the whole barn except for the top, like the roof, which will be covered in snow. So I'm just gonna go over the whole thing with a lighter wash of red, not too light, but I'm gonna add more darker color after. So I'm gonna start off with a lighter wash because we want a bit of shadow too. We want to see where the sun is hitting the barn, which I think will be on this side. So it might be a bit darker on the front of the barn, and then maybe the sun is hitting it on this side. So doing landscapes kind of like this too, you got to decide where your light source is to make it a bit more realistic with shadows and highlights. So just pick your light source. So say the sun's coming this way and it's shining, it would hit the front of the barn. If the sun's coming over here, it would hit this side of the barn. If the sun's behind, this barn might be dark, okay? So you pick what you want to do. But always kind of try and keep that in mind of where your light source is. Okay, I'm just going to move all this around. And like I said, it's going to be darker on this side, so I'm going to bring more red on this side. And then what I'm going to do is create a shadow red, which you can create shadows of a color by adding its complementary color. So I added some red there. I'm going to take a bit of Hooker's Green Dark and I'm going to add it to it. So you don't lose that red color, but it makes it a bit darker. And I'm just going to go over this side of the barn, this front here. And I might do that again after when it's dry to make it a sharper line there. But I'm going to add a bit of shadow under here because the roof would be hanging over just a tad on this side, which would cast a bit of a shadow. Okay. Okay, so there's that. We need to wait for that to dry. And while that's drying, I am going to paint this fence over here. So I'm going to take some of my burnt umber. And again, I am going to do kind of like a light wash. Of this, and then I'm going to add in shadows after and detail after. Okay, I'm going to go back in with a bit more brown and maybe a bit of black. And again, thinking about your light source, if the light source is coming from this way, it would cast a shadow on this side of the fence. So on each piece, I am going to be making it dark on the one side. Darker, not too dark. Maybe the underneath. And while this isn't completely realistic looking, it just adds a little bit of realism to it by considering these things. And we're gonna add a bit of detail on it too when it is dry. Okay? Okay, so now we are going to let this part dry and then we will move on to the second part. Okay, so now that that's dry, I am going to move on to the background up here. So I'm gonna take my larger brush, and I'm gonna be using blue, so I'm just gonna make sure that I don't have my red water there. And I am going to grab a little bit of indigo and Payne's Gray, just a little bit, dilute it. And I'm gonna do the background. Make it really, really light colored. And wet up that background. That is why we have our paper taped down. Just missing the roof of this house, okay? So don't touch the roof yet. We're just getting the background to start. Okay. So if you want to add a little bit of like sky blue too in that sky, you definitely can. Lighten it up a bit. Maybe there's some blue sky coming through. Or maybe it's more of a gray day. And now I'm going to add some trees in the background, but using the wet on wet technique to make them look like they're far away and kind of blended. So I'm getting some Payne's Gray and some indigo. And I'm just going to start creating lines like that in the background, which will end up being trees. Okay. I'm just going to go, so I do vertical lines using the tip of my brush and then horizontal lines. Okay. To create some trees in the background. And you can make them bigger too if you want. You want to go up higher. Maybe they're huge, huge trees. Whatever works for you. These are going to be evergreen trees back here. Just using a little bit behind that barn. Like so. And as you see with the wet on wet technique, it has really made it kind of blurred in the background, which is the effect that you want. Show that they're far away, okay? And I'm just using the tip of my brush to create some points so you can see the tips of those trees. Just make sure you don't have too much paint or water or else it will spread out more and it won't look as sharp. Like that, okay? So we will let that dry. While that is drying, actually, I'm gonna wash off my brush because we wanna create a little bit of color in the snow without adding like lots of color. So I'm gonna wash off my brush and I'm just gonna add some water here, but I'm gonna gently touch that line so that bleeds down just a bit. And then I wash off my brush and I blend it out. Wash it off, dry it. And if it happens too much, like that's kind of overpowering it a bit for me, I'm just gonna move it around a bit. You can always take your paper towel and mop it up just a bit, just by pressing as long as it's still wet. Take up some of that color, wash off your brush again, and then blend it out. So it's not as dark, but just moving some of that darker indigo around. I don't really want it to be too dark there, just a little bit of a bleed. And get a little bit of that Payne's Gray and indigo in the snow down here. And then I might take a bit of my cobalt blue, just add it a bit. Some areas in the snow. And again, because the shadow is there, sorry, the sun's coming down this way, there's going to be a shadow where the darker part is in the barn. On this side. I'm going to bring some of that Payne's gray down here, wet it up. Okay, and then I'm going to add a bit of shadow behind, just a little bit, that was too much, where these posts are in the snow. Maybe it's casting a bit of a shadow in the snow. This fence, okay, like that. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna wait for this part to dry. Okay, so now that it is dry, oh my goodness, has the sun been there the whole time? I apologize if it has. Okay. Okay, so now we are going to, again, do more on this background. And we'll start with that. Yeah, okay. Sorry about the glare in my office. Okay. So we're gonna do some more trees in the background. These ones behind are really far in the background, so that's why they're kind of blurred. Now we're gonna do some sharper trees closer than that. Still behind the barn, but closer than those trees in the background. So you're just gonna do the same thing of the horizontal lines, and because the paper is now dry, you're gonna get sharper lines. So you're just going back and forth. Okay, really messily. Doing a couple of the branches that point up and then they start to point down. So just using the tip of your brush to make kind of scribbly pine leaves. They're not leaves. You know what I mean. Do smaller ones. And if you hear some crying or whining in the background, my son has just woken up from his nap. And my husband has gone up to get him. Okay, so we're done those trees. You can do a couple more behind if you like. I'm just gonna do the tips of some of these, not too many. Like that. And also having these trees that are more in the foreground and that are sharper, a bit shorter than those faded ones in the background, the blurry ones. Okay, so just keep that in mind too. So you do get that dimension of both. Okay, so those are done. Now we're gonna move on to some detail in the barn. We did add some shadow there before, but I'm gonna add some more now while it's dry so it's sharper. Okay, so I have my mixed red here, which is the cadmium red deep and a bit of Hooker's green dark. And that just makes it a bit more muted, but adds kind of like it's a shadow of a red. Okay, so I'm just doing the face of that barn darker. And then under here too, under this lip of the house, because maybe it's casting a bit of a shadow like that. Okay. I'm just wetting this area up. I might add a bit more just plain red to make it brighter. Okay. Like that. Okay, and then I'm gonna add a bit of my cobalt blue to the snow on the house. Not everywhere, just really, really lightly. So there's some color, and then I'm gonna wash off my brush, dry it, and I'm just gonna blend it out a bit. So it's not completely white on top of the house. I might add a bit of indigo too, just to darken it up. Okay, like that. And then some down here. Shadow in front of the barn and back here with some of that blue. Okay. There you go. And then a bit more on that line where the trees are. Just very, very light. Blending it out. Like that. Okay. And we will do some detail on the barn too. It's not done yet. Just gotta wait for that part to dry. Okie dokie. All right, let's do a bit of detail on the fence now that it's dry. So we're gonna do some wet on dry, which will create those sharp lines. So I'm just gonna take some of my burnt umber and black. And I'm just going to do some detailed lines in the wood with the tip of my brush, going with the grain of the wood, like that. Okay, and then these ones going this way, maybe where the wood is put together, and dots of where the nails would be. That might add a bit more darkness to those sides. that. Okay. And there's that. And then we just have to wait for the trees to dry and the barn. Sorry about the sun again. Gotta close my blinds. And yeah, we'll do the trees in the barn once they are dry. So wait for this to dry one more time. Okay, so it's dry now, but before we do that, I forgot I needed to darken in some of these windows. So I'm just gonna take some Payne's Gray and just darken some of these windows. And I will be putting white around them once that part's dry as well. Okay. And again, I think I'm just gonna add a bit more shadow to parts of this barn. I'm gonna dry it off, blend it out. So that will have to dry. And now let's do the white on the trees first, and then we'll do the white on the windows. So I'm using my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White ink. I'm just gonna take some on my brush. And if you've seen my Winter Forest tutorial, you'll know how to place the snow on the trees. Just dabbing it on there. It's a nice winter day. Snow has just fallen. And you don't have to add the snow if you don't want to. They could just be the trees like how they were. I don't know if you guys can hear my husband upstairs and my son. His bedroom's right over my office, but I can hear all the funny sounds that he's trying to make him laugh with. And he sounds crazy. So if you can hear that and it's weird, I apologize. But it's cute. All right. Okay, there's the snow. You might want to add a bit of white snow like that. I'm going to add some on the side of the barn. Like that. Okay. And just going to make sure that's dry. I'm going to take my white and I'm going to do a big barn door. Put that across. Like that. I'm going to go around these windows. That. I go over a bit of the snow like that. There's a window up here. Like that, and there you go. There is your farm. Okay, your farm, your barn, whatever. I'm gonna take off the tape. And there you have it. Your barn in the snow.
Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram and Facebook for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye!